If you guys don't know, CNN has made a complete new move as I believe it was Jeff Zucker, I think was his name, who was the former CEO, had stepped down. It is a new CNN chief in town. That's Chris Licht. He is the new CEO of CNN. And so he has decided to make a big shift. And so CNN has made a huge shift. We've seen people like Brian Stelter is gone. Don Lemon has been moved. And so there have been huge changes over at CNN where people think that it's like a left-wing network. Obviously, it's more like an anti-Trump kind of liberal kind of network in a way. But what it's decided to do is we're going to try to move more to the center. But to be honest with you, I mean, during the election in 2016, it was very much so like a both sides kind of thing. And so it's kind of like what he's trying to get was already what they had. And so they would have like, the Trump person here and then the anti-Trump person here, and they would have both of them go at it. Like, that's the way that they did it. So they already were like that at the time. But I think it shifted more anti-Trump after the election. But during the election, I think that like false sense of centrism actually also kind of helped Trump too. In a way, it was like a combination of that and then the annoying, like, obsessive negative coverage of him that ended up really hurting them and helping Donald Trump. But he's gotten a lot of backlash. And so it says CNN chief says uninformed vitriol from the left has been, quote, stunning. Chris Licht, who became CEO of CNN earlier this year, said he has been surprised by the uninformed vitriol directed at him from liberals as he attempts to shift the network's editorial direction in a series of interviews with the New York Times. Licht took over the network in May, making a series of staffing and programmatic changes that have sparked buzz about Licht aiming for a more centrist slant. The uninformed vitriol, especially from the left, has been stunning, Licht told The Times, which proves my point. So much of what passes for news is name-calling, half-truths, and desperation. Since joining CNN, Licht shook up the network's morning lineup by moving host Don Lemon, an outspoken critic of former President Trump, out of his primetime slot into CNN This Morning with Caitlin Collins and Poppy Harlow. They obviously like each other. The chemistry is great, blah, 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 blah. Licht has also let go of prominent pundits like Chris Licht and Brian Stelter, also known for their sharp criticisms of the former president. Many inside and outside the organization see Licht steering the network toward a more centrist direction, characterization Licht has pushed back on. Instead, Licht told The Times that he wanted the network to offer a, quote, rational conversation about polarizing issues, adding that he hoped viewers would take what they've heard to the dinner table and have a discussion. That's a dream of mine, Licht said. But Licht also has faced the strains of a slowing economy and dwindling digital advertising, causing him to lay off some rank-and-file employees and make other major cuts. In one of his first moves at the network, Licht nixed the network streaming service CNN Plus just days after its launch. Quote, here's what he says. Seems like this appears to be the thesis. I want CNN to be essential to society, LOL. Licht told The Times, if you're essential, then the revenue will follow. But the CEO acknowledged he might not succeed in that aspiration. Maybe it won't work, Mr. Licht said, but I'd rather try to win this way. So it seems like he knows this strategy isn't going to work. Again, clearly what the strategy is he's trying to make the network CNN more into a centrist direction. And so what it's doing is taking more of a rightward shift than it previously was. And so you can see it based on the hosts that they have, the stuff that they're saying, and their coverage. It's blatantly obvious what's going on. Now, in terms of what is the goalpost that you're setting up, is the goalpost, like, what is he actually trying to do here? He's a capitalist, so obviously he's going to try to make more money. There's no way that he actually gives a shit about what the political coverage is. Why would he care? He's a CEO, not a freaking, political guy, unless he's like a right-wing political guy, which I'm not to my knowledge he is. So he's going to try to make more money. So if you set up the goalpost as like having a successful enterprise in business, it's just not going to work. CNN has the reputation of being like a liberal network, essentially, right? Which is somewhat debatable, but I would say like after the election of Trump, it did kind of turn into like an anti-Trump network. And during the election, it was also anti-Trump, but it also did the both sides bullshit where you had like the false neutrality. Neutrality is dog water because the problem with neutrality is it treats things as the same when they're not. So like 2 + 2 = 4. If someone says 2 + 2 = 4 and someone says 2 + 2 = 5, those things shouldn't be treated equally. One is inherently actually objectively correct, right? And so that was the big problem with that. Objectivity is what you're looking for, where someone is actually objectively correct on something. And that's difficult to achieve, I understand, but some things are just objectively correct. Like, for example, Joe Biden won the 2020 election fairly, right? That's an example of something that is objectively true. And so somebody who argues for Joe Biden winning and somebody who argues that Joe Biden lost the election should not be treated equally. That'd be like epistemological relativism, right? Like in philosophy, right? Which is just, that's absolutely insane. It's bonkers. So that's dumb. And that seems to be the direction that he wants to go in. Now, from a business perspective, it's not going to work because right-wingers aren't going to all of a sudden start coming to CNN. It's funny, I think liberals do this a lot where they try to get conservatives on their side. Obama tried to do this in the beginning of his presidency, and he wasted a bunch of time, a bunch of his supermajority time. He wasted it trying to hold hands with the Republicans to the point where like political scientists and stuff are saying like, dude, why are you doing this? What are you doing? And he talks about it in his book too. Like he tried inviting them to like Super Bowl parties and stuff, and it was just a complete failure. It's not going to work. You're not all of a sudden going to pull a bunch of right-wing viewers. That's part of the trap, I think, too. I think they try to trick you into thinking that it'll work. Spoiler alert, it's not going to work. So what you can see is, from a business standpoint, I think it's going to be a massive failure. If you're going for that neutrality business model in terms of like if our goalpost is like actual solid news coverage, neutrality is stupid again because treating two sides as inherently equal is false. Because there's objective truths to be had. Like, for example, Joe Biden won the 2020 presidential election. There's a significant portion of the population on the right, especially people who are like pundits, etc., who would actually say that that's not true, that Donald Trump won the 2020 election. But we know that one of those is objectively true. And so if you're going for neutrality, just having those two and treating them as equal and sharing both sides, that's dumb. One of them is objectively true, right? We're talking about like, epistemological absolutism, not relativism, right? So from that goalpost of like a business model, it's going to fail. If you're trying to say that it's not going to be, CNN will not be essential to society in any way. It's just not going to work. They don't have that business model. CNN plays its role. It's kind of like the breaking news website, right? That's just kind of what it is. And it's just was on TV. And so the boomers and like the Gen Xers are going to watch it just because it's on TV, but it'll never be like that essential thing. And if you're essential, then the revenue will follow. I think that a lot of the problem with media today, the media is definitely problematic because it's very clickbaity and all about unsubstantive things like Joe Biden falling off of his bike, for example. Like that's a news story that they have much more, a self-interest to cover. However, I think a lot of that actually falls on the viewers of the media. Because if you look at media as like a supply-demand aspect, what we know is if there's demand for something, supply will always somehow find its way there. So no matter how much you try to like cut off the supply of drugs, it's going to fail because the demand is going to be there. So instead of attacking supply, attack the demand instead in an actual legitimate way, right? And so that's not a solution. So the media will do clickbait things and things like that because that's what viewers end up watching. And then the viewers are the ones that are constantly criticizing and putting pressure on the media for revenue, viewership, etc. They go, oh, look, this news channel lost a bunch of viewers. Look at them. Oh, why is secular talk stagnant? Why is this news network stagnant? And so they're the ones even putting the pressure on these news networks in the first place to actually be able to uphold those numbers. And so, a story on climate change or the railroad strikers, or even worse, something where you actually like an actual lesson on something like epistemological relativism versus epistemological absolutism, or something like what a monopsony is, or like comparative advantage, or fucking how to calculate like standard deviation, or like that kind of stuff. No one's gonna watch it. And so you put people in a situation where the media has to cover those issues because you're putting the pressure on them to have those numbers. And our society is just so number and everything fake. It's all about image, money, views, numbers. It's never about substance and actual like putting work into making like actual good content. And so a lot of that is true, though. The thing that he's saying about that is true. Like, yeah, it is like a bunch of kind of like bullshit in terms of, oh, look at this story, Joe Biden fell off his bike. And I do this stuff too because it's like the only way like to actually be able to get viewers, because people are just so they're choosing to watch this stuff that's very like base level, superficial. And so if you're a viewer, what you should start doing is start spending your time wisely. And instead of watching that video about Joe Biden falling off his bike or Donald Trump saying something like crazy, instead of that, click on a video that breaks down like the what's going on with the railroad strikers, or click on a video that's like a video explaining some kind of economic concept, or what stagflation is, or maybe watch a video talking about like what deductive versus inductive logic is, or maybe watch a video about like the history of like unions or something like that, right? Just something more actually substantive, because ultimately the demand drives the supply. And so if you are to, now there's some blame to be had on the media as well, but I promise you, if the demand is there for something, the supply will somehow find its way. There's just no other way around it. And so that's why you see like all these like weirdo like red pill people. Andrew Tate seems to have like eclipsed like the normal amount that like these weirdo red pillars get in terms of fame and size. However, what you can see is there's just a constant rotation of these people. And so no matter how many people of these you ban Andrew Tate, like, whatever, you ban all these people, the demand is going to be there. And so until you attack the demand of that, if you're just attacking the supply by banning someone like Andrew Tate or someone like Kevin Samuels or whatever, you're just going to end up just having been in like a hamster wheel, just trying to continuously ban those things. What you have to do is you have to attack the demand for that red pill content. If you were to make it so that red pill content was not desired, then there would be no Andrew Tate, right? And so that's a better strategy. Now, there's also that aspect, obviously, of like, oh, okay, well, the supply does kind of drive the demand too. That's true. That's totally true too. That's totally true as well, partially. But I think it's more demand related than it is supply, personally, is what I think. And so, yeah, I mean, I know that the media controls a lot of stuff too, but you also have a lot of control over the media, because the reason why the media doesn't cover climate change is because nobody fucking watches the climate change videos. So if you start watching the climate change videos, what's going to happen? They're going to want to do climate change videos, right? So it's also your fault too. It's not just the media's fault. It's also your fault too, heavily. Arguably more your fault than the media, because we know what the structure of the media is going to be. It's going to be whatever gets views and stuff. And again, you create that structure as well. Society has created that structure as well, of everybody just wanting to be fake and all about numbers and not about, oh, I put a lot of work. Instead of people flexing like, oh, like I put a lot of work into this content, the thing that people value is, oh, how many views did you get? How much money did you make? And instead of like, oh, like it's quality content, right? And so that's the thing. So society is fucked up in the first place too, and y'all are doing that as well. So it's also big on the viewers as well. I would say more so the viewers than the media, actually, is what I think. But anyways, yeah, let me know your thoughts down below. A lot went into this.